let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us for tonight's evening update, coronavirus for home service businesses. So every evening at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we go live on Zoom and on Facebook, hopefully, as I just mentioned, and we go over the state of the world, what's happened since the last time we talked. Mel goes through all of the recent current events as it may pertain to home services. And then we go over a main topic. So the main topic for the day is how do I know if I'm an essential service, and how to really pivot your business towards that without crossing the line and doing your part. So we're going to address all that tonight. And we have a special pro guest, Mackenzie, who will be joining us in about 20 minutes to talk about the strategies that she's implemented into her business that she wants to share with you all. She's created a whole roadmap for the coronavirus, new marketing strategies and referral strategies. So without further ado, let me pull up our little program outline here. As always, we encourage comments and engagement. Ask questions. Let us know if you are resonating with what we're saying or any comments that you have about it, and we'll say it live if we think it's going to help all the other pros too. And share this in other groups that you're in. Knowledge is power. We have to all bring each other up during this time as people in the trades. So
this is for everybody. It's obviously for trades, but it's also for anybody, not just Housecall Pro users too. Obviously, we started with a great base of pros here, but regardless of the software they're using, if you are in the trades, period, that you're going to benefit from this. And even if you're not in trades, you'll benefit from this. So go ahead and feel free to share this group across Facebook, across your friends, through Zoom if you're doing any Zoom hangouts with people, all kinds of ways.
And then the last thing from me is answering Dan's question, how do we see past discussions? So Dan, you can see them in our Facebook group. So Housecall Pro, the Facebook group is the official coronavirus discussion for home service businesses. You can look it up if you are not currently a part of it. All of our past broadcasts are in there, as well as all the PDFs that we make from the broadcast. And we've had 5 last week. You can also find them at housecallpro.com/coronavirus. There's a resources box up at the very top to see any of the blog posts or templates or past broadcasts that we've done over the last week. So that's where you can find them. And that's where you'll find this one if you want to watch it at a later time, or you're only able to watch a few minutes of it. So I will pass it over to Mel, who's going to introduce herself to you and let you know the state of the world as it pertains to the home service industry.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you for joining us this evening. I know many of you have been with us from last week, but lots of you are new. So welcome. I'm Melina Fairley. I'm the Senior Vice President of People at Housecall Pro. And I've been providing these updates for the last week to home services businesses and small businesses across the country. So feel free, like Alexa said, to go ahead and share. I've got lots of other folks from different industries that have been pinging me with questions and things as well. So I think that this translates. You guys can call me Mel. You've heard them call me Mel. A little bit about my background. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer or an infectious disease expert. I'm here just to share information in any way I can. So I know it's a busy time. It's a difficult time. So my goal is to stay glued to the news and to stay glued to the reliable sources of information, such as the Centers for Disease Control, so that you can catch up here nightly with us for a brief world update on reliable news about the coronavirus. So my hope is that providing you these updates gives you peace of mind, knowing that you've got a place to go for information that you could trust.
Yeah, and obviously based on trust, I'm sure you guys are seeing all kinds of stuff in Facebook groups that are copied and pasted and all kinds of memes being generated. Obviously, if you guys don't know the source or they're not linking to the source, it makes it difficult to make sure that you can trust it. And so in a world that's filled with all kinds of fake news and things like that, we're really looking to bring you everything that we see across the web, but also cite where we get them from. And Mel will go through that as she's mentioning the things. And then we have links to all the things as well. So that way you guys are getting that accurate news. But as you guys are seeing stuff across the web, make sure to question everything, especially if it sounds too good to be true or also too crazy to be real.
Right. And as business owners and as leaders and managers, You as home service professionals are really uniquely positioned to be a trusted source in your community. So people are probably already asking you questions. What's going on? What should we do? What can we do? What can't we do? So making sure that you're using, trusted sources is important. And as Roland mentioned, we will go ahead. I will, as I share some numbers with you, I'll let you know where they came from. We'll also include that in our update PDF, including live links for you to go and fact check anything that I share in this update portion. So I'll jump right in with some numbers. We've been talking about these every night that we get together. So the World Health Organization puts together all the numbers globally. So they've currently reported as of yesterday, the 22nd, over 292,000 confirmed cases and 12,784 deaths globally.
What about the US?
Yeah, the US, you've got two sources, the CDC and Johns Hopkins. So I've been typically reporting on the Johns Hopkins numbers, which are taking information from multiple sources. So they're currently reporting 35,345 US cases and 473 deaths as of 10:30 this morning. So this would put the US at number 3 worldwide in terms of the number of cases, behind only China and Italy. So it's definitely, something that has put us on the world stage in a big way.
Yep, and obviously different states are at different levels in terms of from where they are from, case one. So each state has their own views as well, and the link that we'll include in the PDF is going to be able to link you straight to whatever state you want to.
Yeah, we'll give you a state-by-state map that the CDC has put out, where you can click on your state and see where you guys fall as far as the number of cases. California, New York, and Washington State remain the 3 hardest hit by the virus. And with more than 15,000 confirmed cases in New York State now accounts for roughly 5% of the world's total.
Yep.
So this is definitely having a world impact. So a little bit about what's going on in the world. This summer is supposed to be the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. So that's become a point of conversation today with the Canadian teams announcing that they'll not send athletes if the games do go on as planned. So the International Olympic Committee is definitely going through what they're calling scenario planning to see what they might be able to do, and even potentially postponing the event. So I'll keep you posted if any decisions are made there, but I know a lot of us look forward to that every 4 years.
Yeah, it's also, so it's just confirmed just a couple hours ago, actually, that it was postponed to 2021. So, so that just came through. Breaking news.
More breaking news. I think while Roland and I were on another call or meeting over the last hour or two, the UK has announced, the United Kingdom has announced today that they would place Britain under a virtual lockdown, which closing all non-essential shops and banning meetings of more than 2 people, asking folks to stay home, all the same things that we've been seeing here in the States that have made that call as well. So trips out for food and medicine seems to be the exceptions across the board, but other than that, they're asking people to stay home. So you'll continue to see the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, send out additional guidance. They updated some guidance for retirement communities on Friday. So they're putting out new guidance as to how often those need to be cleaned and how often people can get together in those assisted living facilities. And then they're also providing some good directions for children as well. I know my kids are home from school. I think most kids are home from school. And so they're definitely recommending that we all revise or postpone travel plans that we might have had for spring break, even if it was just to see family, just that staying home with our nuclear families in our place of residence is the safest thing, not just for older folks, but it's the safest thing for kids too. So that's definitely something to keep in mind that impacts all of us that are parents.
And what about the kind of the U.S. response? Obviously, with the economic stimulus package is trying to get passed. So it looks like it's now failed the second time today.
Yes, at least as of yesterday, the Senate failed to pass the bill in its current form. So we'll be waiting for more information about that economic stimulus package. I think most bets are that something is going to get passed and through. It's just a matter of what the details are at this point. So I'm sure that'll make our updates just about every night here.
I think the good thing is they keep trying, and they keep trying really quickly in quick successions. Normally this takes a long time to go. So it does mean obviously that they're taking it very seriously and trying to get something in place for all of us.
I think quick reactions and actions are what we're starting to see. I mean, I prepared this information a few hours ago before we sat down for the evening, and 10 minutes ago I'm getting updates from someone on my team who are helping me keep an eye on things when I'm attending to other business. So we know that New York on Friday put New York State on pause, and then now we're seeing other states. So since we last met on Friday, you've got Illinois, Connecticut, New Jersey, Ohio, Delaware, Louisiana, Indiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Oregon are all the latest to announce some sort of directive to keep people at home to try to slow the spread of the virus. So the desire there, you hear about flattening the curve is the call to action that you keep hearing about. So that's trying to slow this thing down so that our medical system and our hospitals can have the capacity to treat the sick.
Yep.
And so in each of these orders that have been coming out of different states and counties, sometimes even the cities, Philadelphia had its own city order, for example. All these orders generally include some sort of exceptions list, as well as some sort of, what to do. So stay home. You can go out for groceries, supplies, medical, dental, veterinary. You can go out to work at essential businesses, and that's what we're going to get to tonight. And then, there have been different lists as to, who or what is an essential business. But those are common provisions in each of these lockdown orders or shelter in place orders or stay at home, or if you're in New York, they're calling it the pause. So those have been some common themes. So that's really your state of the world for today. It's increasing measures to keep people at home and to keep people safe and to slow the spread of this contagious virus so that our medical systems have time to catch up.
Yeah, and I would just say like a tip for everyone to watch, regardless of where we are at the current state, is look at the states that are potentially ahead of you from the time of their first cases to see what is happening there, because invariably it'll roll out to other states. Don't think that your state by any reason happens to be immune from what's happening. So use it as an opportunity as a laggard state to be able to learn for what's going on, so that way you can plan a little better and learn from your fellow pros and the people that are in the group here that are really sharing strategies on how they're coping with it, because it won't be an if, but more of a when. So use those as indicators to take a look at for your business too.
So I think that's a perfect segue into what our main topic is tonight, and that is how to create or pivot services that fall under the essential service category in your business. So before we have our guest Mackenzie on, we wanted to run through, first we're going to have Mel talk about what is an essential service, where to find those resources one more time. This was a whole topic that we had last week. I believe it was on Wednesday. So if you want to hear the entire broadcast on this, go back to last Wednesday's, and that's in the Facebook group and at housecallpro.com/coronavirus. So I'll let's first ask Roland. We want to talk about this subject as a whole. There's really two sides of it, right? I have to provide for my family. I have to go out and do work, but also your duty to your community and to society. And how do you not cross that line when figuring out what your essential services are?
Yeah, ultimately, you need to decide, is your business essential or not? Is it listed? If it hasn't been listed yet, think about things truly. Is this something that someone will need regardless of the situation? So imagine a good barometer is just take the coronavirus piece out of it and just say, hey, if a client's toilet got clogged up and it's flooding everywhere, would I still need to go out? In the absence of the situation? Yes, definitely. It's a really good way to think about, okay, these are things that are essential to keeping something up and running and functional. So think about things that are repair, think about things that are maintenance, think about keeping things operational. If it's something that seems more elective or sort of like a luxury, or something that someone with maybe more disposable income would just do because it brings just a small incremental amount of comfort, then you're on that kind of that gray area. And so you really need to start thinking about, okay, how can I make sure my employees are safe, my clients are safe, and then also my community is safe. And so as you're thinking about these things, in the kind of the lack of some directions of some of the states, without explicitly being listed, use those as kind of barometers to figure out where you fit into the mix. Because we're going to share some tips here in a little bit on some things that you can either pivot or change in your business to really qualify for the essential thing. Because just because there's these new kind of laws and things that are being put in place doesn't mean that you can't change with what's going on as well, and make sure that that demand is there for your work. So probably Mel's got a better view on the kind of what is essential and what is not currently, and how you go about like finding that.
Yeah, I wish I could point you to one list that fits for all locations, but how our system is set up is that these lists actually vary by state, county, and sometimes even city. So what we're seeing with each of these announcements is that typically an announcement is made. If it's by the state, it'd be by the governor. If it's by, it could be a county supervisor or a city mayor. And then usually within 24 hours, and it's actually been getting much quicker, that the government, that entity that announced the order, publishes the full details of the order, which is much more detailed than what the media typically reports on up front. So a lot of the initial news stories you'll read don't have anything that you'll hear about the home services business. But then when usually there's a link within the news article from your local paper or your state paper online that'll then say, hey, here's the full order. You go to the full order, and then that's often where you'll see an extensive list. So there is some federal guidance, but there's not a federal standard. So these standards are really chosen at the state, county, and sometimes even city level. So in general, what we're seeing is that plumbers are often named specifically, electricians, and those who provide, some of the wording we've seen is, services necessary to maintaining the safety, sanitation, and essential operation of residents and essential businesses. So sometimes there'll be a more extensive list, but think about if you're providing maintenance and safety and sanitation to an essential business or to individual residences, those tend to be falling on the essential services lists by area.
Yeah, and one thing that you can do too, because you guys are part of this Facebook community here, is look and see what other people are doing that do have essential businesses. And we're going to talk probably a little bit more about strategies and tips here, but as you look around, who is still operating and what are they doing and what are they offering? So if you sometimes feel like you're alone, I promise you, you're not the only home cleaner. I promise you, you're not the only HVAC person in the area. So look towards others as well to see kind of how they're responding to all of this as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So with all of that being said, understanding where to find out if you're an essential service and just kind of like the ethical ground rules for it is what I think I would call it. We're now going to go over the top things to consider and when figuring out what essential services you can offer, whether or not you're already offering them or whether or not you're going to be creating them. So we're going to be going over those and also a few ideas on how to market it. So this is like the meat of our webcast today, and then we're going to have Mackenzie on to share what she's been doing with her coronavirus roadmap in the different essential services they're now offering in their business. So I'll let Roland take it away. Roland, should we cut our video and you can go through our list?
Sure.
Okay, Mel and I are going to cut our video and then we'll be back.
All right. So it's just me alone on the beach. But we're going to talk a little bit about some things that you should start thinking about for your business here as it relates to essential services. So typically, I like to recommend list out all the services that you do on a day-to-day basis and really figure out what are those top 5 or so different things that you are offering, and then figure out whether they're essential or not. Oftentimes, things that are emergency driven, so when people call you last minute, is a good indicator to think like these are probably essential needs. So think about what are the things that people call you or call your business up about like, hey, I need this. Do you have time right now? Can you come out right now? Typically those things you would then start to consider as like, okay, these are good indicators that it's probably something that is essential to the business. So that's kind of step one. Another thing, think about the different services you offer. Obviously, there's things you do indoor and there's things you do outdoor. As you're thinking about, keeping your community safe and keeping your distance or social distance, what are things that you can either do outside of the home, outside of the perimeter, where you're not even close to anybody else? So think about what those are. Another thing you guys should think about a little bit is how do you ramp up the messaging that you're doing for the emergency services that you're offering? So how are you letting your community and people know that you're still offering these services? So things like sending out emails, things like sending out texts, creating either banners or ad units or any kind of marketing message, letting your clients know that you're still open, especially for these emergency services. If you're a cleaning business, how do you weave more antiviral or disinfectant into what you're doing? Do you now start to offer this as a part of your service by default rather than as like an add-on? Oftentimes those things will make it easier for you to kind of qualify or think of it as an essential service because you are focusing on the sanitation, things like that to keep people safe. On the other part, think about what can you do to do work for people that are either snowbirds, have kind of left the nest and gone for warmer grounds or are traveling. Which of your customers do you think would have open homes with nobody in it? These are really safe, obviously for both sides to go to and to still maintain some of the business. Obviously, if residents have multiple properties, things like that. Are there any kind of commercial services that or locations where normally there's a lot of people that congregate, but now because of what's going on, they don't? Can you offer services there? That's a great way to kind of think about that. More importantly, like those are things for your current business. What else can you think about from generating new lines of business, new lines of service? There was a really cool post by Amy, who does pressure washing out in Florida. And she's created a new line of business helping all the grocery stores disinfect and sterilize and sanitize, their shopping carts. And now she's going around marketing this to all the different grocery stores. Because if you imagine, how do they do that? And do they hire people for that? Do they even have people that are qualified to do that? Do they even have the right equipment to do that? So start branching out and start kind of seeking where there's some opportunity for businesses that are still open. So think about the other essential businesses that are open and how you can help them. Because if they're essential businesses, it's essential they stay open. So if there's any kind of services you can render for them, then by default, you're essential. So start tying yourself to that. On that same vein, think a little bit about what are some other businesses that are essential businesses, even if yours might not, and you don't have any extra services that you can offer. They will be looking for skilled labor. They'll be looking for people with equipment, with trucks, with the labor force. Are there ways that you can do subcontracting for them? Because as you can imagine, just because this is going on doesn't mean necessarily that the demand is going down. The demand is just getting pent up. And for some of the essential businesses, obviously it'll be increasing because of that. So they'll be looking to bring on board more people. So how do you go about in your community offering out, hey, you know what? I've got guys that are willing to work here. I'll have you subcontract. They've got trucks. They've got all the tools. You just tell them where to go and what to do. Maybe you even have PPE for them. So protective equipment that you also either sponsor or give to them to go out to do these subcontracting jobs. So looking out there and seeing what businesses are still operating is a really good, clever hack to figure out, hey, can I offer them labor? Can I keep my people running around? Do I keep my trucks moving? Obviously, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to delivery. So there's a growing amount of companies hiring for delivery services. Instacart, Uber Eats, all of these things are now really starting to hire. Amazon, starting to subcontract work out. So, and they let you use your own vehicles as well, as long as they're like approved. So there's a whole bunch of other things that you can be doing sort of in the gig style economy to stay active, keep moving, and still provide service. In fact, oftentimes if you can swing it, while you're doing services for them, you can also still market parts of your business that might still be essential to those customers. So oftentimes you'll see people there pitching their own services too, which is really a simple thing to do, and you're doing it on someone else's dime because they're paying you for those services. So that's a great place to kind of look. And then just look around from a government perspective. What are government buildings, things like this that you know won't close, that are essential businesses? What can you do for them? You can reach out to them. Guaranteed, the people that are still inside of those offices have other people that probably have some essential needs. And how can you think about your business maybe in a different way? Maybe you're not doing any kind of cleaning. Maybe you're driving masks from one place to another and picking things up. How can you do that to keep yourself busy? These are all ways, obviously, that you can hustle and still make money and put kind of the infrastructure and things that you've got in place. The reason why I know this is because at Housecall Pro, we can actually look and see in your account to diagnose and troubleshoot. But when I look in people's calendars, I see all kinds of interesting stuff pop up in the line items and things getting charged that aren't even their traditional industries. So I see a lot of people starting to change and augment some of the different line items that are in their accounts, and they're adapting. So when we're looking at, hey, some businesses that still have work, what are they doing? They're finding different ways to stay busy. So those are just some of the things you should consider, from either pivoting your own business a little bit and adding new services and things that you offer, to completely changing and just switching the line of work you're doing entirely, or subcontracting for someone else. And then also just looking at different opportunities that's out there. What other businesses are essential that are open? What can you do of service? Maybe just take it down to its basic, like what sort of labor do they need? And be the one to provide that. Reach out to them. I always tell people, like, oh, okay, do I just send them an email? What do I do? Just show up at their place of business. They can't ignore you. What are you doing anyways? Just go drive around, go talk to them, go meet people. Don't shake hands. Keep your social distance. Come prepared. Have protective gear, so when you come there, you look serious. But don't be afraid to get out there and just meet with people and do things to keep your business up and running. Mm-hmm. So those are just some of the basics.
So kind of going off that, before we have our guest Mackenzie on, Roland, can we talk a little bit more about the best way to reach out to these commercial or government or essential service businesses that are still open in a way that's appropriate and safe, but a way that makes an impact on them?
Yeah, so obviously, like, the things that you can control the most are going to be the easiest thing where you can control your input. So calling them up, showing up in person. Just sending out emails probably is not enough, but it's a good thing to do. So that way, if you do call, you say, hey, Alexa, do you happen to get that email that I sent you? I know things are really busy and crazy. I just wanted to offer you my services. Oftentimes too, if you're speaking to these types of accounts, maybe just for the first week, say, hey, you know what? I just want to help out. Now I got to do these things. And once they get used to your services, then the following week say, hey, it costs me some money to run the trucks and run the people. What would it look like if we got under contract together just for a short time? It even doesn't have to be for a really long time. Don't think that you have to have a whole bunch of legalese in place to do certain things. Even things as simple as a handshake, AKA 6 feet apart, but like maybe you go like this. You know, in times like these, communities get together and you have to trust people by their word. So give people kind of a taste. I tell people often too, like, you've got an existing customer base. In the worst case scenario, you can let all your customers know, hey, don't worry about ever going to the store and picking something up or sending something from here to there. You know, if you don't want to do that, let us be your messenger, let us be your courier, let us be your delivery service. You can always find ways to keep things on the road and your trucks and your people moving. So don't be afraid of doing that hustle.
So one more thing, Matt Inshow, I hope I said that right, had a really good point. Week-to-week contracts are very attractive to corporate chains right now. Another thing, to Roland's point of just maybe offering your services for free or discounted for the first week just to get them to start working with you, this is a really good chance for you to post in any other Facebook communities that you're in. I know a lot of you are in like these free and for sale and local services groups for your town or community. So now's the best time to put it all out there and ask anyone to tag someone who has an essential service and that you're offering discounted or free services for a week. And normally you get booted with that type of thing, but right now is totally the economy and the time to be able to offer your services up like that, especially if you're doing it for free or discounted.
Remember too, you can use this as a tax write-off. So whenever you're rendering any services like that for free, figure out what their MSRP is, and you can discount that as a marketing activity at the end of the year. So consult your local CPA on that. But I've seen that tactic used many, many times, and it's definitely super valid. That way, you're still getting the tax benefit of doing those activities. The other thing to consider as well is that a lot of companies still maybe now are a little bit on the lagging side and don't even have budget allocated to it, or even are thinking about paying for something like this yet. But just know that that'll be coming. And so if you're there already doing the service, it's very easy to transition to. Now that you got budget, just so you know, I got to keep the truck on the road. Here's this, and always be open and upfront and say, hey, you know what? I can only do this for this next week or whatever it is. And hopefully I'll be looking, and this is a valuable service, and I'll be looking to charge something that's fair, right? To continue offering the service, right? So set expectations correctly so it'll help you close that sale when it comes time to ask.
Mm-hmm. So this is a perfect segue into introducing our guest, Mackenzie. I'm going to promote her to a panelist right now so we can see her. And she's going to start her video.
Hi guys.
There she is.
There we go.
Mel's back too. So we are so excited to have Mackenzie on. Mackenzie is one of our pro leaders. She's very active in our community and has a lot of good stuff to share with you. So Mackenzie, we can start this off just by you introducing yourself, where you're at, kind of how you've been affected so far, and we can go from there.
So I'm Mackenzie Medeiros, and my company is Family Man Handyman, also known and pegged as the Family Man team. We have 9 employees, and we do an assortment of jobs, and our job is nothing too big and nothing too small, and our motto is to help people live in the home they love. For here living in Washington, we live in Olympia, so we're at the Capitol. We didn't really see a week ago a lot of the virus coming into our community at first, and now over the course of this week it has become an impact, and there's just we've had to lay off 2 people, but it's okay because it's what is needed to be done right now, but with the promise that there will be a turnaround after this.
Mm-hmm. And how are you thinking about the different types of services that you offer? Because you mentioned that you do a lot of different things. So has that changed at all in the last week or 2 weeks? And what are you thinking about this kind of going into the next couple of weeks?
So right now, what we implemented about 2.5 weeks ago was leak detection specials. And since we live in Washington, we're in the Pacific Northwest, it rains a lot. So a lot of people are able to see a lot of the long-term exposure to leaks in their ceilings, but now we're taking those services beyond just your average roof leak, because sinks leak, dishwashers leak, and washing machines leak. So we have taken that kind of course into, hey, we're out there for your basic and most common leaks to help and fix and repair them. Sorry, I have 2 kids and sick at home, so they're coming in to peek on me.
Like, what are you doing, Mom?
If you hear little noises here, I think it's Minecraft alerts for my kids from their friends with their devices on the charger. So we're all in this together. It's all right.
Honestly, Mackenzie, it's good you have your kids with you, because everyone has their kids with them right now. It's not an option. So being able to juggle, first of all, being a parent, and then being a business owner, and not only providing for your family, but for your employees is huge, especially with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that what you were discussing earlier is like kind of creating a roadmap, due to we are kind of in ground zero of the virus here in Washington State. Zach and I, who is not here, he's actually out in the field right now installing security gates for people's homes that are wanting to keep people out because a lot of people are scared. But, we're wanting to come into this situation as leaders and leaders of the community, not going into fear, being lighthearted as much as possible, but yet being, taking those precautionary measures to let our clients know that we're doing everything that we can possible to make sure they are safe when our technicians enter their home. And one of the things that I had, Zach and I had come up with was a program called Nominate a Neighbor. And so with that being said, I'm going to be starting a marketing campaign that I'm only going to market to my previous Housecall Pro clients, that they have the opportunity to nominate a neighbor in need free of charge. And we're going to do 3 people per month, all starting this spring, all summer long. Okay, you can color. And so with that being said, and the idea behind it, and I know a lot of technicians out there are probably going to be afraid about going into other people's homes or sending other people, or they're sending their technicians out into people's homes. And it's more so the fact that we come out on the other end of this, that we've made an impact on our community, that they remembered that we were there. So we don't mind being that free of charge service to the Nominate Our Neighbor campaign. It's just for the fact of the matter that we stood out to be there. And I wanted to share this with you guys and our pro leaders in Housecall Pro, is to consider how you can be a leader right now and do your best to also stay safe during this crisis.
I think that's a great idea. And I think it's also good too, from a business perspective, is because if you're going to be doing 3 kind of free things that you might be out there going to do with your technicians, you're at the same time also building a list of all these neighbors, many of whom they won't, you won't be doing anything for. That'll start building a base of people that you can market to, definitely, towards the back half of where we're going. That is going to be a really easy phone call, or reach out to them and say, hey, you know what, your neighbor Alexa had nominated you. I know that we were only able to do 3 based upon where we were at, but if there's anything else left that you wanted us to do, we're back in service here. Is there anything you want us to do? And here's the price. Yeah.
And exactly. And for those out there that are kind of doing the whole question, well, like free of service, like what am I going to do? And so I had come up with just very basic, simple ideas as, nominate a neighbor to that community that wants that community garden. And if you're handy, go out and build them their raised garden beds. Be active in what that neighborhood wants to do in the meantime, because they don't want to go to the grocery stores and, be out in public. Neighborhoods have come together. But I did have like a question for you guys, if you don't mind. Hold on, I got to read this real quick. Can I read this real quick? Okay, thank you. So for people that would be considering as a company, whether they're HVAC, plumbing, house cleaning, nominating a neighbor can help you become a supporting leader in your community. How can other industries utilize Nominate a Neighbor to help themselves and their communities? If you guys can also be a brainchild on that. I'm not a house cleaner, I'm a handyman company, but how could somebody such as a house cleaner be a part of Nominate a Neighbor? How to make that kind of like a coined term for everybody to rise up to the occasion to become that in their neighborhood.
And I think one of the things that we're all seeing as these lists of essential businesses come out is that, our pros, the folks who are out there doing the work in home services, we keep America going, right? So this is not just going to be a few days. This is likely going to be longer than a few weeks. So,
yeah.
I've got a 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grader that are all treading on my home like never before. And, there are things that are going to break, and there are, I'm working full-time from home now. There are going to be things I can't keep up on in the same way that I can. I'm working a lot longer hours because of there's so much going on. So for me as a homeowner, Mackenzie, just if I were to see a business in my area that had such a program, it's a business that I would remember. And, it's a business that when something happens, I might not have a neighbor to nominate, or I might not be nominated, but certainly it would help me, feel like you're a business that cares about my community. And there will be a time where I'm going to need something. Things around here are going to take quite a beating in a way that they're not used to with, 4 giant kids running around. So I appreciate the sentiment. I love the focus on the neighbors and the focus on your local community, because really that's what this is going to take, is all of us focusing on our neighbors, focusing on our families, making all the little decisions, all the right decisions to help us all get through this with our hearts and souls intact. So I appreciate the sentiment. I don't know that I have any great advice for how to make it catch on, but from a homeowner's perspective, I would just like to hear that someone's doing it. And that would matter to me.
Right.
So Mackenzie, as a fellow brainchild, like, first of all, I love this. And I love all the ideas that you come up with, even outside of this coronavirus. I love all the things that you share. So something that comes to mind in order to really get this to like blow up in your community, and for other pros who are going to be doing this Nominate a Neighbor campaign, my advice is to create pre-made social media cards. So whether that's Instagram or Facebook, and making it already shareable. With a little blurb for your current customers to share, because everyone right now is in such that community mindset, as we're all talking about. If you come up with something for me to just share, and I don't have to think about writing it myself, people are a lot more likely to share that stuff when it's made easy for them. So that would be my idea to get this thing spinning out in, again, like all of your online communities, your local Olympia Facebook groups. That would be definitely where I start. You've probably already thought of that, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, another question that I would have for you guys is, how do you prepare your techs on entering clients' homes and making them feel comfortable to still continue to work with you when they also have family members that are concerned for their well-being, and you want to keep your team rolling?
Yeah, and we actually, one of our earlier live casts talked about what you can do even just when you first answer the phone for that service call, the types of questions, and we can get that reposted, the questions to ask someone on the other side of the phone who's looking for a service, just so that you can keep your tech safe, and your techs can share what your company is doing, with their family members, so that they know. I know we had a written COVID-19 preparedness plan at Housecall Pro. We had this written in early March, and I had employees asking me if they could share it with their spouses, and they could share it with their parents in other states, so that they were made aware of what Housecall was doing for its employees to keep our employees, safe. And so that transparency, I think, has really helped people gain comfort. And then if you're ever getting discomfort, I mean, discomfort's a signal, right? So if you have discomfort from an employee, discomfort from a customer, from an employee's family or spouse, like you need to listen. They are telling you something. They're telling you something, and you need to listen. So ask questions. Tell me more about this discomfort. Don't dismiss it. Get down to see if there's an idea or suggestion that would make them comfortable. And if not, then really listen to that. Okay, if they're uncomfortable, maybe I should be uncomfortable with this as well. Let me sort of go through my decision making here and see if I really do feel good about this. So take those signals. Don't ignore them. Don't think someone's overreacting. Keep asking questions until you can understand their point of view and their concern.
Yeah, and the good thing too is just to make sure that you tell your employees where you're getting information on to protect them, for example. So that way it's not just you telling them or you saying it. It's like, no, we've got the CDC or we've got the World Health Organization, or these are the things that they recommend as their best practices. And so these are things that we're implementing in our business. So that way, the technicians have that peace of mind, but then also invariably the customers do too, because it goes to show that you're aware and that you care. And if you have those two things, that's going to help you go really far with your technicians and your homeowners.
Yeah, and letting the homeowner know, hey, I'm going to ask you some questions that I normally wouldn't ask you before booking a job, but I hope that you appreciate the extra care and concern that we're taking during these times. So, yeah. Okay, here's the first question. But letting them know you're asking it of everyone makes people feel better. Like, not only do they not feel singled out in a negative way, but they also feel more secure that you're doing the right thing on every call. And then the same with your employees. You should be asking them questions every single day about how they're doing and how their household is doing, because just because they were feeling great yesterday, maybe this morning, maybe they're nervous to say something, so going ahead and just making it a regular practice that before people start work in the day, you know, checking in with them from a health and wellness perspective, you know, both emotionally and physically, right? These are tough times for everyone, and as their leader, they're looking to you to ask the right questions to help them through it.
Absolutely. Sorry, my little one's playing with my notes.
Like crossed out in crayon.
What?
Like crossed out in crayon.
She's like, oh, I like this color. So I guess, yeah, the other thing that I wanted to share, just to kind of summarize and finish up my Nominate a Neighbor campaign for people that are trying to wrap their mind around it. Majority of us do have a website, and I don't know how many users are using the Housecall Pro pre-built website, but what we're doing is setting up a MailChimp landing page that is a subscription that is the nomination. And so that's how we're going to be sending out the blast of Nominate a Neighbor, through the MailChimp landing page. And then, but before we're going to create the landing page and then send out a MailChimp email blast only to our Housecall Pro clients, so that we get the first trial and error of a more controlled group of people that are nominating their own neighbors. That way they can say, oh, I've hired these guys and I want these guys to help my neighbor 2 houses down. That way it can stay within a controlled trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's a great idea. And for those of you that are like, oh my God, how do I get MailChimp and how does all this work? Inside of Housecall Pro, if you go to your customer list, you can actually export all your customers. It'll save it as a CSV file, and you can import that CSV file into MailChimp. And then if you happen to do it multiple times because you're getting more customers, it'll auto detect duplicates for you too. So you can keep uploading the same thing, just make sure you align the columns, and it's fairly straightforward and easy. And MailChimp's a great tool because it's free up to 2,000 users. So if you have less than 2,000 customers, it's gonna be entirely free to send it out. And then even beyond that, if you wanted to get a bigger plan up to 10,000, it's still a very nominal amount and a really easy way to get the word out to do stuff like this. Exactly what Mackenzie just mentioned.
So first of all, thank you, Mackenzie, and feel free to stay on for this last part. We're going to do some Q&As, but just some final thoughts on what you're doing and really being creative and outside of the box is like, this is the time to do it. And it may seem scary because when you think of the trades, you typically think it's very cut and dry. It's very A to B, you know what needs to get done and you do it. And there's an answer, but right now there's really not. And so you have to be creative with your marketing techniques, with the way you're doing outreach in your community, different tactics like the Nominate a Neighbor, doing things for free. Any of the tips that Roland listed off, which we will have for you in a blog post and a template for you to refer back to. But as always, as you're starting to think of these new creative things to do in your business to get you more business and to make your employees and your customers feel safe, post them in the coronavirus discussion group for all of us to give you feedback. I've seen lots of that going on and it's great. It's all constructive feedback. There is no judgment. Everyone is just there to help each other. So once you start putting together maybe your own Nominate a Neighbor campaign, put it in there. Let us give you some feedback. The whole Housecall Pro team, Mackenzie and our other pro leaders and whoever else is, and all the other pros who are in there.
And I'd recommend any other neighboring businesses that are close by, have them send out your nominations page to all of their clients as